Hello and welcome back. I hope that you've made your way around Canvas a little bit and that you've been able to visit My Labs Plus. Um, I hope that you were able to take your pre-test and that you looked at your attendance policy, signed it, and uploaded it to the Dropbox. You could type your initials into it. You don't have to actually sign it with a pen, just initial it and upload it. And I would like to get on to Chapter 2, Vocabulary Strategies. We're skipping Chapter 1. We'll go over that next module next week. So in Vocabulary Strategies, you should have read about academic vocabulary, which are the essential words that you would need to know in order to understand a topic that you read within a certain subject, such as the academic vocabulary for business courses, academic vocabulary for law courses, academic vocabulary for psychology courses, academic vocabulary for reading courses. The good thing about academic vocabulary is most textbooks within a field have a glossary at the back of them that list academic vocabulary that is found in the book. So a typical law book, history book, science book would have a glossary at the back with important terms that the reader would need to know. Typically academic vocabulary is emphasized and bolded, possibly in the margins of the pages with definitions, and it's made obvious to the reader that it's important vocabulary that they should know. Context clues are when you read the word in its setting, you read the sentences before or after to try to determine the meaning of the word. Many times they'll have contrast clues, which are antonyms, restatement clues, which are synonyms or words that mean similar, almost the same thing. They might list examples or general knowledge that define the word in question. For information on these, I would like you to go to your book and look for some examples of these type of context clues before you attempt taking the quiz. If you don't have your book yet, or for whatever reason don't have a book, you could Google, or whatever your favorite search engine is, context clues, examples of contrasting context clues, examples of restatement context clues. But I suggest that you do that before you attempt to take the quiz if you do not have a book to look it up. Again, our book, it's Reading for Thinking, and it's in the NCTC bookstore. I believe you can rent it. You might get it used at half-price books, but then you won't get the key, which is, I believe, has a special price. But I'm not sure about that. You might check with the price for the My Labs Plus key that typically comes with the book that you buy at the bookstore at NCTC. Maybe it's the same price and you can get a used book somewhere else. The next way to determine unfamiliar words is to familiarize yourself with word parts. And you'll get a lot of practice in this semester with the vocabulary homework. We'll focus on prefixes of words, and that'll help you in the future look at word parts. But word parts include the root. Most words have a root word. It could be usually it'll be a Greek word, or I just went blank. But most words, they have a root word, a prefix, and a suffix. A prefix will come at the beginning of the word and a suffix at the end. So the root word will have a meaning in itself, like a base word, and the prefix will change, typically change it to mean something. It'll change the form of the word, and the suffix will change the part of speech. For example, undeniable. Un is the prefix. It means not. Deny is the root word, which will come from Greek or Latin. There's my blank. So it'll be typically a Greek or Latin root. And then able or able is my suffix, which means able to. So undeniable would be not, meaning not able to deny. And I have another example, because un isn't the only prefix that means not. In can mean not. It can also mean in too. But in this case it means not, so not comprehensible. Comprehensible, comprehend is a root for comprehend or for understand, so, which is the same thing, a synonym. So IBLE is another form of able, so it's not able to comprehend. So when you learn, the more and more word parts you learn, the more easily you'll be able to define certain words in their context. You can use the context and the word parts together, and you'll become more adept at solving words. Sometimes you can think of another word that has a similar prefix or a similar suffix, and that'll help you understand that word part as well. So all of these things are in your book for you to look over a little bit more yourself. The book talks about allusions and references, and I highly recommend that you look at that. Allusions and references refer to common knowledge, but some allusions I don't understand, or too old for me even, so I'm sure there's many allusions that you might understand. One that they used in the book was about a Cold War. A Cold War typically means hostilities that are basically verbal, and if you're old enough, you would remember that the United States and Russia used to have a Cold War. So they were very hostile towards each other, even though we weren't in war with each other. There's a lot of references in the book that you can go over to help you understand what allusions and references are. But it would benefit you to learn different allusions and practice them, just as you will practice vocabulary, at least during your college years, so that you can understand what writers are alluding to or trying to tell you. You can use dictionaries, of course, glossaries, and search engines. The dictionary, again, goes back to, we're going to get to it on the next slide. The dictionary is important. If you know how to use it, it'll work for you. The glossary is going to be only terms that are found in a textbook that the glossaries contained in. And the search engine, I always say Google, but there's many search engines. Most of you have cell phones, laptops, iPads. Many times you can just Google the word or search the word and see what the meaning is. But if there are too many words, it's going to break down your short-term memory, and you're going to lose meaning in the reading because you're going to be too busy looking up words. So you're going to want to try to skip over them and try to get the meaning in context. And if you don't figure out what they mean after a few sentences or a few scenarios presented in the text, then you might try to go back as a last resort to try the dictionaries or the search engines. But speaking of dictionaries, something not to forget that's not mentioned so much in the chapter are parts of speech. And my slide's getting a little blurry, but parts of speech are when we're talking about nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives. So typically we have nouns, which are persons, places, things, states of being, institutions, types of feelings, not always something tangible or something that you can touch. And then there's verbs, which are actions or something that link a noun to something else. And then there's descriptive words. Sometimes when we read a sentence, we don't know the word, at least if we know the parts of speech, the part of speech that the word is, we can get a general feel for the meaning. So this example is in your book. The city-states of the 14th and 15th centuries were princely oligarchies. 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 That's the word. An oligarchy is a type, well, let's think about it. So the city-states, so the typically would be an article that would precede a noun. So the city-states are nouns, right? They're places. Of the 14th and 15th century, this is a prepositional phrase. Century is the noun, and the 14th and the 15th are the descriptive words which tell me which century I'm talking about. Were, that's a linking verb. So the city-states were, I can take out my prepositional phrase, the city-states were oligarchies. Oligarchies. So princely is a descriptive word or a type of oligarchy. Princely, ran by a prince, prince-like, like a prince. So oligarchies is a noun. In this case, it's a type of government. So they're telling us that it's talking about government. And examples like these are also found in your book, though they do not particularly target parts of speech. Knowing parts of speech, which you should be in an English class either this semester or you'll be taking one next semester, pay close attention to parts of speech and you'll improve your vocabulary and your comprehension of vocabulary. That's all I have for now. Work through the module. I'd go through it in the order it is presented. Take your quizzes. If you fail them, you can go to My Labs Plus for the vocabulary quiz. Look at the vocabulary module in My Labs Plus. Do the practice for that, and you can get some extra credit to bring your grade back up. But for now, good luck, and if you have any questions, email me, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you.